Hello, everybody, and welcome to this Friday edition of the Logan Blackman Show. I don't even know why I'm emphasizing Friday, because that's just the day the show comes out. There's only one show a week right now, so we only come out on a Friday, and that's if I'm not absolutely swamped crazy going into the weekend. But we are here. We are live at some point in time to bring you another excellent edition of the Logan Blackman Show. And before we get into anything, let's go over the housekeeping items first. Make sure to follow the Logan Blackman Show on every single form of social media: Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, and of course, Apple Podcasts and Spotify. You can find me on Twitter at Logan_Blackman. Instagram account is Blackman Logan. The show's Instagram account is The Logan Blackman Show. Facebook and YouTube search the same thing, The Logan Blackman Show. Make sure you like and follow the Facebook page and subscribe to the YouTube channel. We will have our Week 9 quarterback prospect rankings coming out for you today, so make sure you subscribe to the YouTube channel, and also make sure you're following, again, all the different links that I mentioned before, because I'll post links to the video on all those different forms of social media, as well as I'll post links to the podcast, which, if you're not following on social media, you can find on Apple Podcasts and Spotify, as well as YouTube there as well. TLBS Podcast YouTube channel is also up. You can also go to loganblackmanshow.com for all those great links. You can also make sure to check out our weekly quarterback prospect rankings. Again, like I said just a little bit ago, we will be having our Week 9 rankings coming out today. So that's awesome. That's always a fun thing. And it's sad because it's so close to the end of the season, but it's just a really fun time because we're getting to the more notable people or not notable people, but we're getting more fine-tuned at this point in the season, which is a very exciting time. But yes, make sure to follow the Apple Podcast, Spotify, and YouTube accounts. Make sure you give a rating out of 5 stars on all the accounts. Make sure to give a like rating if you're listening to this on YouTube. And yeah, leave a comment down below on why you feel the way you do about the show, about the show's episode, about the show in general, whatever it is. Let me know. And also make sure to check out the Believe in Iowa podcast as well. Twitter, Instagram, TikTok. Also find it on YouTube and most importantly, Apple Podcast and Spotify. Oh my goodness, I overslept for the last Believe in Iowa podcast, if you could believe that. We tried to record it super early in the morning, or not super early. It wasn't like it was 7:30 in the morning, which is not a crazy time. I'm usually up by 6:15 anyways, 6:30. But the night before, for whatever reason, I couldn't fall asleep. I think I ultimately fell asleep at 2 o'clock. I fell asleep at around 11. And then I woke up at 2, and I don't think I fell asleep again until about 5, and I woke up at 6. So I was a little bit tired, and I stayed up late that night as well, working on said blog post. And I was watching Monday Night Football as the Chiefs and Commanders, so that was great stuff. Just great stuff, but it was just a lot of stuff that was going on at that point in time, and I just got a little tired, and I overslept, which I believe is the first episode I've missed on an accident. Because there was one time I missed an episode because my Wi-Fi randomly shut off right before we started recording. So that was fun. But this is the first time it was human error on why I missed a show. But I would recommend, again, going to listen to that, recapping the Iowa versus Minnesota game, which we're going to do right here. So don't get it twisted. We were going to do that right here. But, oh my goodness, you got to check it out. Check out everything. Check out everything. We'll talk about NFL, college football, everything. It's a great fun. Great time to do the Logan Blackman Show again because it's so late in the season, because we're getting to more fine-tune things at this point. Iowa, as we just talked about, absolutely beat the piss out of the Minnesota Golden Gophers on Saturday. Now, if you know me, you know how much I despise the Minnesota Golden Gophers. I've never... It's a rivalry, so just naturally you're going to dislike them, but this one just felt different. I mean, one of my dad's business partners and friends when I was growing up was up in Minneapolis. So he was a big Minnesota Golden Gophers, Minnesota Vikings fan. Vikings thing doesn't really bother me, but the Gophers thing, that irked me. And I always used to make fun of him about Minnesota, about when Iowa and Minnesota played. Because when I was growing up, Iowa and Minnesota was not really that close. Like, it was really just Iowa beating the brakes off of Minnesota every single year. Like, I remember back in 2008 when Shawn Green was the running back at Iowa. Iowa went up to Minneapolis, to the Metrodome, and won that game. I believe it was 55-0. I mean, Iowa went up there in 2002 when Brad Banks came second in the Heisman Trophy to Minneapolis, beat them 45-21, and tore down the goalposts in the Metrodome. Tore them down in the Metro. How many schools or how many teams do you know of that go into opposing teams' ground and tear down the goalposts in their stadiums? How many other teams, how many other situations do you know of that? They carried them off the field in the Metrodome. And what's crazy about those videos, there's a guy rocking a Bills jacket in one of them. But since I've been, aware of what's going on in college football, so I would say post-2000, I would say is about where my my knowledge starts. So the first game I visually remember watching was the Rams-Patriots Super Bowl, that first Super Bowl. So, I guess the second one that the Rams went to in 2001. That's the first game I remember watching because my Nana and Papa were very big Kurt Warner fans, and it was just must-see TV every single time he had to play because they already won a Super Bowl up to that point. He was from Northern Iowa, from Cedar Rapids, all that great stuff, so it was obviously we had to watch. So I would say post-2000 is where my knowledge kind of starts or kicks in, where I'm like, oh, I remember that. So we're looking at Iowa. Post that. So they have played how many times? They have played, okay, let's just count it out. Since 2001, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25. So they played 25 times since then. I mean, that would be, you would think I could do that mentally, but I couldn't do it. I couldn't bring myself to do it. I do apologize for that. But they played 25 times since 2001. You know how many times Minnesota has won in those 25 times that Iowa and Minnesota have played each other? 5. Minnesota has beaten Iowa 5 times post-2000. That is insane. That is absolutely insane. And out of all of those 5, only one of them came in Iowa City, and that was the no fair catch game, or the fair catch game that Cooper Jean had when he returned a punt return for a touchdown but got ruled back because they said he ruled a fair catch. So Iowa realistically should have won that game, but, we could still throw out the signs like, oh, it wasn't a fair catch and all that great stuff. But majority of my life, Iowa has just absolutely dominated Minnesota. And I know Minnesota holds the lead in the series, but unless you're born before World War II, I don't think you really should hold a lot of weight in Minnesota holding the series lead in this. I mean, cool. You have the series lead because of all those years before 1945. That's awesome. Congratulations. When, we actually got good at football and fun football, when actually it was becoming a thing. Like, when did the Heisman Trophy become a thing? Because I know Niall Kinnick, World War II hero, I know that I think he was like the 3rd winner or something like that. He was like the 3rd or 4th winner of the Heisman Trophy. When did that start? Heisman Trophy officially started in 1935. Niall Kinnick was the 5th Heisman Trophy winner. So 1935. So Minnesota and Iowa played a good amount of times pre-1935. So if you're looking at Minnesota and go like, oh, we hold the series lead. Yeah, because most of your wins came before the Heisman Trophy was even a thing. Like, congratulations. We recorded the Believe in Iowa episode prior to the Minnesota game, and Minnesota's won more games since when Franz Ferdinand was alive. Like, that's how many games Minnesota won in that early portion. But no one cares. No one gives 2 shits about that, okay? Post-2000, it has been belt to ass 90% of the time. And obviously there was some give and take here and there, but 90% of the time, Iowa just routed Minnesota. Routed them. Like, they were never close games. There were, again, okay, there was a couple in there, like 14-7, 17-10, games like that, 27-22 in 2021, 13-10 and 22. But then you also have games like 42-24, 45-21, 40-20, 52-28, 55-0, 12-0, which was the game post the Ohio State overtime game where Ricky Stanzi missed due to the Northwestern injury. So James Vandenberg started that game, and Iowa could have won the Natty. Not won the Natty. I'm going a little crazy here. But then resume 31-13, 23-7. Then you keep going down 48-31, 35-7, and then most recently 31-14 last year in Minnesota, and then 41-3 this year. 41-3 in Iowa City. Belt to Ass Bowl 2025 was in Iowa City, held at Kinnick Stadium, and it was glorious. I'm not gonna lie, that is one of the most fun Iowa games I can remember in a long time. In regards to, like, I'm giddy watching the game. I'm like really excited and laughing watching the game, where I'm so relaxed because there's not a chance in hell Minnesota has any chance in this game. Like, it was just a nice little feeling in there, and it started off early. Iowa, first drive of the game, touchdown. Could have had a touchdown. I believe it was Seth Anderson. Gronowski was trying to hit in the end zone, or Jacob Gill. I can't remember which one it was, but trying to hit them in the end zone just a tad too far inside, or too far outside, sorry. Diving catch was made, or attempted, not made, but the drive continued, and Iowa just had their way with them. And ever since that first drive of the game, it was done. Like, Iowa scored in literally every single way you can imagine. Every single way you can possibly score in a football game. Guess what? Iowa did that. You have an offensive touchdown with Mark Gronowski with a rushing touchdown, first drive of the game. Then you get a field goal. So then you got your field goal in there as well. So that's awesome. And then you get a pick six. So there's your defensive touchdown for you. So you get rushing touchdown, field goal, pick six. Perfect. And then you have a Mark Gronowski touchdown pass to Reese Vandersee, who caught it over who? Mr. John Nestor, former Iowa Hawkeye cornerback, who transferred to Minnesota. Like, I don't have a problem with Iowa people transferring. I don't really have a problem with them transferring in the Big Ten if they're given an opportunity to start there. I do have a problem with if you go to Minnesota, Nebraska, or Wisconsin. Then I have a big problem with that. Like when Jake Rudock went to Michigan, I had zero issue with him doing that. Tyrone Tracy going to Purdue, zero, and Charlie Jones. Zero issue with that. Zero issue with any of those guys transferring out because they were very good players at those schools. Like Jake Rudock got brought in by Jim Harbaugh and put up some really good numbers in his one season as a Michigan starter. Tyrone Tracy turned into an NFL draftable running back at Purdue. And Charlie Jones put up ridiculous numbers while he was there as well. So I don't care if you do that. But going to Minnesota, going to Nebraska, going to Wisconsin, you know what you're doing. You know exactly what you're doing. And it's annoying because I don't want you to do that. I want you to play. If you're not playing for Iowa, I sure as hell don't want you playing for any of the rivals. I really don't want you doing that. But then it got better even after that because then you get a Caden Wheatchen shocker punt return touchdown in the second quarter. So it's 31-0. It is 31-0 Iowa with, 11 minutes to go in the second quarter. Like, if I talk about, like, how much fun of a game that was from a neutral's perspective, I don't think you could fully grasp it. And then you get an interception in the first drive of the second half for Minnesota. You have the punt in there, but you get another field goal. But then the backups eventually come in because it's just punt. Like, Iowa's not really doing anything at that point. Dogs called off completely. Jeremy Hecklinski comes into the game, and he gets a rushing touchdown. Went 1 for 1, 6 yards passing, but most importantly, 6 yards rushing, 1 touchdown in there. And Iowa comes away with a 41-3 victory. And what was crazy about the start of the game, Gary Danielson, I love Gary Danielson and Brad Nessler. It's always awesome. It's still, I know it's been a couple years, but I still haven't fully, like, wrapped my brain around that the Big Ten is I haven't fully wrapped my brain around that. Like, I'm expecting to see, like, Jalen Waddle, Joe Burrow, and all those guys pop up on my screen. But no, I'm getting slow motion shots of Mark Gronowski warming up before a game. Like, again, I just haven't fully grasped around that. But what they talked about in the pregame, that was just it was the only thing they really talked about, is how awesome Drake Lindsay is. And I know a Drake Lindsay, and my Drake Lindsay's freaking awesome. I love that. I love my Drake Lindsay. Sick drummer, great dude, awesome guy, love him. This Drake Lindsay, I almost love him even more. He could stay at Minnesota as long as he wants, if that's how he plays every single time against Iowa. 3 interceptions in this game thrown by Lindsay. 3 interceptions, one of them being returned for a touchdown. Interception first drive of the second half. Interception in the fourth quarter, which led to an Iowa touchdown. Like, those were just fun moments. They were fun. And I think Drake Lindsay is talented. I'm not sitting here and denying that Drake Lindsay is talented. Like, you look at him, he's got the build of a quarterback, like of a D1, like, potential pro prospect. I'm not sitting here going like he's going to become that at any point in time, but he's got the look of it. He's 6'5", 230 pounds. He's got decent numbers prior to this game. Has a good arm, and they're not the most fleet-footed guy in the world. More of your traditional pocket passer, which was awesome for Iowa this weekend. 3 sacks in the game. But it just got to a point of like, why are we talking about this so much? It's not, I know he was a 4-star recruit. At least I'm pretty sure he was a 4-star recruit. I'm pretty sure he was the highest rated quarterback of Minnesota since, I almost said Graham Mertz, but he was at Wisconsin. I believe he's the highest rated quarterback Minnesota's ever had, if I remember correctly. I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure that's the case. So I understand the hype of a high school kid coming in, being a freshman. He was there last year. He was behind Max Brosmer and the depth chart, which Brosmer was a good quarterback. That's not any dig at Drake Lindsay about like, oh, you didn't start over him. Like, we're not doing that here. Max Brosmer was good, and I liked Max Brosmer at Minnesota. I thought he made some really good plays for them and had a really quick release. Not the biggest dude, but quick release. Good guy. Good quarterback. I liked him. But it was like, man, this kid's special. This kid is special. And it was kind of just setting him up to fail from the start. Because if you've watched Iowa post-Iowa State game, there was no reality in which you could really look at and go, oh, yeah, that's not going to set him up for anything bad. He's going to look really good. I mean, Fernando Mendoza, who's the current, depending on who you ask and what your what you read or what you pay attention to. Fernando Mendoza is one of the top 2 Heisman favorites at this point in time. Top 2 Heisman favorites at this point. Very good quarterback, and deservedly so. Indiana's the second-ranked team in the nation. They're undefeated. It's awesome. He's had a great, great, great season. So far this year, they've played 7 games. There's only one of those games, because Indiana, if you haven't watched a lot of Indiana this year, they run a lot of RPO. They run a lot of quick slants. They run a lot of stuff to the outside. He's the most accurate quarterback when it comes to throwing the outside, bar none, in college football. And it's just a common theme at Indiana that you're able to throw really good back shoulder balls. That's what Fernando Mendoza does better than anybody. He's got a rocket arm as well. Big size as well. Good size. 6'5", 225. Just 5 pounds less than Drake Lindsey. Do you want to know the one game where he completed less than 60% of his passes? And again, I'm not sitting here going like, oh, this shows how accurate he is. No, but it's just the statistical number given what he did against Iowa versus every other school that they've played up to this point. And a reminder, they played Illinois, who Illinois was 9th ranked at the time. They're not ranked anymore. And then they went to Oregon, to Eugene, against the 3rd-ranked Ducks, beat him by 10 points. The only game he threw for completed less than 60% of his passes was against Iowa. The only time he did that. You want to know the only time he completed less than 15 passes a game? Against Iowa. Like, he completed 15 passes a game against UCLA this past weekend, yeah, but they were winning 56-3 or 56-6. I don't even think he took a snap in the 4th quarter. And if he did, it was one drive. He threw a pick in that game, sure, but if you look at the Iowa game for Fernando Mendoza and look at all the other games he's played this year, it's the biggest, it stands out of everybody. I know the UCLA game, he had less yards. I understand that. But that game really stands out. It was Fernando Mendoza's first interception of the season. So if you're coming in with Drake Lindsey being this high-profile kid, 4-star recruit, Minnesota's, again, I think their highest-rated recruit of all time at the quarterback position, and you're talking about how he's a talent, he's got NFL talent, you're setting up to fail. Because if Fernando Mendoza, who is not only, because we're talking about this, he was a great college quarterback, we know that, but as well as one of the top prospects in the draft, and he struggles against Iowa, there wasn't a lot of thought process to go into that to say, hey, Drake Lindsey's probably going to struggle in this game. And Iowa's probably going to beat the crap out of him. Maybe not 41-3, but going into this game, I never had any fear about Iowa losing this game to Minnesota. Never had a fear of that. And Gronowski played great. 12 of 19, 135, 1 touchdown, no picks, 24 yards on the ground, rushing touchdown there as well. Again, first drive. That throw he had to Reese Vanderzee as well, the touchdown over John Nessler, 29-yard touchdown pass, that was a fantastic throw. That's a fantastic... Out of all the quarterbacks, remember we've talked about this before, when going over Iowa's history of quarterbacks and post-Nate Stanley. We've talked about that a lot. And I'm at a point... I don't even know what I'm trying to say. The amount of quarterbacks that they've had. So we'll go over the list again. Sorry, I had a brain fog. I had to restart my my thought process. We have Spencer Petras, post-Nate Stanley, Alex Padilla, Cade McNamara, Deacon Hill, and Jackson Stratton. So those are the main 5 guys that you'll see in there. And you got Deuce Hogan, obviously, in there as well. So out of those 5 or 6 guys, not one of them is making that throw to Reese Vanderzee. Because I know it doesn't look like anything. Like, you're just watching to the naked eye or anything. You're like, oh, it's behind him. That's where it needed to be. Look at if you go back and watch the behind angle of that, behind the play, or even if you look at where Reese Vanderzee is on the close-up stuff. If you just look at that and see where Nestor is and see where the ball was placed, that ball could be placed nowhere else but that spot. And people talk about Gronowski's not the greatest passer. He's not been the greatest passer this season. This is not the same Mark Gronowski that we saw at South Dakota State. I think a lot of it had to do with the shoulder injury. I think the knee injury definitely messed up some stuff as well because you know what the old saying is? If you're well, it's not an old saying. I don't know why I said it like that. But if you're a boxer, when you want to throw a hard punch, how do you throw? How do you throw a hard punch? You don't stand up straight up and down and just punch. No, you bend your knees. So if you got a bum knee, they haven't really said what his injury was. They just said it was bad. He couldn't decelerate, which I think is a fantastic sign. You're going to be a little bit wonky when it comes out, especially when you already had the longer motion due to the shoulder surgery. So I'm loving everything what I've seen from Mark Gronowski. The Fu Manchu was awesome as well. I have loved every bit, barring the first 2 games of the season, Albany and Iowa State. Barring those 2 games, I have loved what I've seen from Mark Gronowski this year. And like I said last week, I love him more so because of the fact when they need a play, when they need something to happen, the coaches put the ball in his hands. Which, how many times can Iowa say that in recent memory? Like, you can even go back to the 21st century in general. How many Iowa quarterbacks are you looking at? Like, you got Tate, you got C.J. Beathard, who would pick up a gain on his ground, Brad Banks. Like, that about it? Like, Nate Stanley, you can argue was there. See, Ricky Stanzi's obviously up there as well. But you look at the recent memories of Iowa football, they don't have a guy you could look to and do that. They wouldn't do that with James Vandenberg. They wouldn't do that with Jake Rudock. They wouldn't do that with Nate Chandler. Like, they wouldn't do that with Jake Christensen. Like, there was no guys that you would look at and go, like, he wants the ball in his hands. And I've seen people talking about like he runs like Tim Tebow, and he does. He plays like Tim Tebow his first year at Florida. Not his first year as a starter when he won the Heisman Trophy as a sophomore. I'm not saying that. But when you look at him with Chris Leak as the quarterback, when Chris Leak was the starter, where you could put him in and he can make a play, make something happen for you. Like, Gronowski's nowhere near Tim Tebow. I'm not sitting here and comparing them as players. I'm not doing that at all. Playing style, though, they're similar. They got some similarities in there. And if he keeps playing like that, it keeps playing like he has post the Iowa State game, then I'm perfectly fine. I've said that 1,000 times on the show, and I said it when we were doing the Believe in Iowa podcast, is that when he was playing bad, I was like, this is not Mark Renau. I know he's better than this. And yeah, he's way better than that. And he's playing great. The passing game's not elite, but it doesn't need to be. The thing is, compared in this Iowa team to other Iowa teams in the past where people talk about like, oh, they can't pass the ball, none of those quarterbacks could run the ball either. You wanted the ball to get out of the quarterback's hands as fast as possible because the only person on that offense that nobody trusted was the quarterback. In this rendition of Iowa's offense, they might not be the most elite passing team, but I want the ball in Mark Gronowski's hands. And there's no one else I would rather have the ball at any moment in the game, especially in a clutch moment, than Mark Gronowski. And I love the players Iowa has. Kamari Moulton is awesome. I love Kamari Moulton. Jazz Patterson slowly getting worked back into the team. Reese Vanderzee being back is awesome. Caden Wheatgen is awesome. They're going to break all Tim Dwight's records, which is crazy to think about. Iowa's offensive line is awesome. And the best part is, do you remember before the season started what I said my biggest fear was? Like, biggest fear going into the season was Iowa's secondary. Iowa's secondary has been freaking awesome. Zach Lutmer is playing his ass off. Xavier Wonkpa is playing his ass off. Deshaun Lee is playing his ass off. Like TJ Hall and Deshaun Lee last season were guys that you looked at and go, I don't really trust them. I don't really trust them not to get beat deep. And we were looking at the Mark Gronowski clips going into the season, like when him throwing all those deep balls, and it's like, oh my God, why is TJ Hall 10 yards behind Reese Vanderzee? And there were some slow burners at the beginning of the season, but now they're playing fantastic. Deshaun Lee with the interception against Penn State. Xavier Nwampa with the interception against Penn State. Zach Lutmer, pick 6 in this game against Minnesota. And the defensive line playing good as well. Like, Iowa is just playing fantastic all-around football. And this is the best Iowa team. And the 2 losses by a combined 8 points is very much spinning my head. And I'm going to do the thing that Iowa State fans used to do all the time growing up, is if Iowa and Iowa State played right now, Iowa State would beat Iowa. That's what would happen, right? Iowa would beat the living shit out of Iowa State if they played right now. Iowa State right now stinks. They are bad. It's not even close. Like, it's not even. I know they lost to Cincinnati, BYU, 2 very good football teams, but in those games they got beat up the entire time. They were up 21-10 against BYU, let a touchdown up before halftime, lost the game 41-27. They're not there. They're getting beat up, and they're very submissive right now. Rocco Beck threw a couple bad interceptions. Like, they're not playing good football right now. So again, if we were playing this game right now instead of week 2, then I bet Iowa would beat the absolute piss out of Iowa State. I bet they would. But we don't know. But it's really nice seeing Iowa play this well. It is really nice. Very complimentary football. If you want to look up at the dictionary and search complimentary football, that's Iowa versus Minnesota. Literally, every facet of the game did something. Offense scored a touchdown. Defense scored a touchdown. Special teams scored a touchdown. That's complimentary football at its finest. All 3 phases of the game scored a touchdown. It doesn't really get more complimentary than that. That's what's so awesome about it. That's what's so fun. And you look at, they have a bye week this week, but you look at their next couple games. Oregon, USC, Michigan State, Nebraska. So you're going to USC. You got Oregon at home, at USC, home versus Michigan State, at Nebraska. And what was funny, real quick, I did think it was funny, Mark Gronowski made a little jab at Dylan Raiola before the Minnesota game because they asked him about, Dylan Raiola getting sacked 9 times against Minnesota. And he said, I thought their quarterback held onto the ball too long. And I just think that was a really good line. That was a really good line, especially when you look at Mark Gronowski, who's only sacked twice in this game. Mark Gronowski, just for context, has been sacked 11 times this season. Dylan Raiola got sacked 9 times against Minnesota just 2 weeks ago. And a lot of it's him holding on to the ball too long. I will agree with that. And that's not even me being shady or anything. But you look at those last 4 games of the year. Oregon, USC, Michigan State, Nebraska. 2 of those games against top 25 opponents. Oregon, USC. There's not an unrealistic shot that Iowa doesn't run the table here. It's not completely unrealistic. I'm not sitting here going like it's going to happen. Iowa's going to run the table. They're going to beat the crap out of Oregon, USC, or Michigan State, Nebraska. Given what we've seen from Oregon recently, I know they beat the absolute piss out of Rutgers. That was a lot of pent-up aggression after they lost to Indiana. So there's a lot of pent-up aggression there. They just let it all out against Rutgers. Against Wisconsin, I understand, again, it was raining. Dante Moore leaves the game with a nose injury. I understand that kind of stuff. But their backup looked really good. I'm just going to say that, too. Their backup looked really good. I did like their backup. But Iowa beat Wisconsin 37-0. 21-7. I don't care if it's a backup quarterback or not. And if it's raining or not. You have Noah Whittingham at running back. He's a good running back. I did expect Oregon to be a little bit better against Wisconsin of all teams than what they were. Because Wisconsin, I was at a point where I didn't even think Wisconsin would score a point the rest of the season. I mean, they lost to Iowa 37-0, Ohio State 34-0. And you look at the rest of the games, Washington, Indiana, Illinois, and Minnesota, it was a non-0% chance that they could go the rest of the season without scoring a single point post the Iowa game. So them scoring against Oregon definitely surprised me. And again, I understand it was raining. I understand that. You're in Oregon. I thought you would play a little bit better in the rain against Wisconsin. And I'm going to be 100% honest here. There's a little bit of me that actually is more scared for the game against USC. And scared's not the right word, but more nervy, I guess, for the USC game because of Iowa's history in traveling out west. It's not necessarily the greatest in the world. And I had Iowa losing to USC. And actually, ironically, I had Iowa losing to USC and beating Oregon in my preseason stuff. So I could see a reality where that happens. If you would have asked me that post week 2, when Iowa struggled to put 34 up against Albany and lost to Iowa State by 3, yeah, I would have probably sat there going, yeah, Oregon's going to beat the crap out of Iowa. But then UMass happened, you saw the pass game open up a little bit, and then the Rutgers game is kind of like, oh, this team can actually play. The Rutgers game was the game where you looked at Iowa and go, okay, it's a good football team. And it's not anything about Rutgers being good or bad or whatever, but just how they played in that game was just awesome to watch. And then Indiana happened, beat Wisconsin 37-0. You go into Kennett, you come back and beat Penn State. I don't care if it's a backup quarterback, starter, or whatever. You come back from down, I believe it, 11? I believe it was, to come back and win that game. That's stuff that old Iowa offenses just don't do. Like the offense we brought before, they don't do that. They don't come back in those styles to win those games. So I don't think looking at this game against Oregon, and we're going to talk about it more in depthly next week, but if you're looking at this game against Oregon, I don't sit there and say that Iowa's going to bend over for Oregon. If this game was in Eugene, I might be thinking about it a little bit differently. But with this game being at Kinnick, Iowa doesn't get blown out at Kinnick. I know people talk about the Indiana game oh, Iowa's going to be lucky to keep this game under double digits. It's have you watched Iowa ever at Kinnick Stadium against anybody? A couple years, or not a couple, probably close to a decade ago, Iowa hosted Michigan. Iowa beat second-rate Michigan. This was Wilton Spade at quarterback. Michigan, just for context, Iowa got beat by 40 points against Penn State on the road 2 weeks prior to that. Got beat on the road by 40 points 2 weeks, and I believe they had a bye week in there. And then you look at common opponents for Michigan and Iowa. Iowa and Michigan both played Rutgers that year. Rutgers lost to Iowa, I think 14-7. I think was the score. They lost to Michigan 77-0. So if you look at what Iowa was looking at that point in time, and Michigan looking at what they were looking at that point in time, I believe they were undefeated. They were second-rate team in the nation, and Iowa beat them. Like, Iowa's beaten better teams than this Oregon team with worse Iowa teams than this one. And they've beaten the crap out of some very good teams at Kinnick, namely the Ohio State game. Beating the absolute piss out of them at Kinnick. They've beaten Penn State there before. They've beaten undefeated Minnesota up there before. They've beaten some good Wisconsin teams. I already talked about the Michigan game. I just saw a clip on Twitter not too long ago. 15 years ago today. 15 years ago, which is crazy because I was at this game. I don't feel like it was 15 years ago. Iowa beat number 5 Michigan State 37-6. I was at this game 15 years ago. Tyler Shatz got an interception, pitched back to Micah High, he scored a touchdown. Like, Iowa has done this. This is in Iowa's DNA. That's why before the season started, I was like, they're going to beat one of Penn State or Oregon. For whatever reason, I was pretty confident they were going to lose to Indiana. But for Oregon and Penn State, so they're going to beat one of them. And I said at the time it would be Oregon. But also at the time, I thought Penn State would be a little bit better than what they ended up being. I didn't think at any point we'd be talking about firing James Franklin. And then that happened. So I kind of got a little bit lost in that moment. But I'm not sitting here nervous about Oregon. I'm not. Maybe I should be a little bit more. And I don't want to make it sound like I'm overconfident or anything, because I don't think Iowa should go into this game like I think Iowa's going to win this game like going in. I think think that they should win this game. But I definitely think there's a chance. And I think not being in the top 25, and I think the most important thing here, the College Football Playoff rankings come out next week, I think. So Iowa should be ranked in that, but the fact they're not ranked in this AP poll is ridiculous. Like, I'm just going to put this in perspective here. So Iowa plays USC in a couple weeks. Plays USC. USC, for perspective, got beat by double digits on the road against Notre Dame. Or was it double digits? I can't remember. Yeah, 10 points. Got beat by double digits against Notre Dame on the road. Fell out completely of the top 25. So they were out of the top 25. They're ranked 23rd right now. So you would guess that USC beat a pretty good team or won pretty convincingly to get back into the top 25. No, they didn't play a game. USC didn't play. And yet they went from unranked to the 23rd ranked team in the nation off of doing nothing. They didn't do anything. They didn't play anybody. And yet they're sitting there at 23. Texas is 6-2. And I understand that Mississippi State's a better team than what they were last year, which isn't that hard to do. But Mississippi State took them to the frickin' brink. And they moved up 2 spots in the rankings. Like, I know South Florida lost to Memphis. I know LSU lost this weekend to Texas A&M. I blanked a little bit. And I know Illinois lost. I know Arizona State lost to Houston. So I know there's teams jumping up in the rankings, but Iowa not only not being in the top 25, which is ridiculous enough, Iowa being not even the next team in, or the next team, or the next team. Iowa's the 4th team receiving votes. And I think a lot of that has to, because the AP voters are just journalists. They're not like, I don't know. It's not like a supercomputer that's generating all of this. It's just court of public opinion. And if you go on social media right now, and you look at anything regarding Iowa football, it's all about how bad Iowa's offense is. That's all it's about. It's how bad Iowa's offense is. Like, oh my God, Iowa offense. Punting is winning. Punting is winning is still getting talked about in the year of our Lord 2025. And all that goes to show me is that no one's actually sat down and watched Iowa games this year. Because I love Barstool Big Cat. I love Big Cat. And he releases a tier list every single week for NFL games, and it got some college teams in there. I love it. I think it's hilarious because every single time someone asks him, how is this team here? He screenshots it and said, this is why. Or proof right here. And I love that. I think it's hilarious. And I know, I can't tell if it's bait or not, but in his tier list this week, he had a tier that said the exact same team every single year, but that's a good thing. And it's Iowa. This is the only one where I'm going to look at and go like, how is that? Iowa's just not the same team they were every single year. They're just not. It's not even like close. This Iowa team is not even remotely close to some of the Iowa teams that we've had in years past. Like, you look at the Big Ten, at this point in time. Look at the grand scheme of the Big Ten. Right now, points per game wise, Iowa's averaging 31 points a game. 31 points a game. That's not including, that's in total, not Big Ten games. So you look at Rutgers, 38 points there, 15 against Indiana, 37 against Wisconsin, 25 against Penn State, and 41 against Wisconsin. Let's just do the quick math here. So we got 38 plus 15 plus 37 plus 25 plus 41, and divide that by 5. It's still, it's still 32 points. I thought it was going to be higher. I don't know why. My brain's just not really working right now. I'm sorry. That was really anticlimactic. That was so stupid. Oh, my goodness. But regardless, if you're looking at the conference points per game, so it's the same thing in general, but in regards to just strictly the conference in that regard, Iowa ranks 5th in the Big Ten in scoring. They rank 5th in points per game. Ranked 5th. So it is Indiana, USC, Ohio State, Oregon, and Iowa. That's the top 5 for Big Ten conference games. Indiana at 41, USC at 35, Ohio State at 33, Oregon at 32, and Iowa at 31 points a game. Iowa gives up 15 points a game as well. So yeah, it's not the same Iowa offense. It's not. They're really fun to watch. And it was kind of funny for years. I say years. Well, yeah, it's pretty much been years. I would sit back and go like, man, I got Iowa on Saturday and they got the Bills on Sunday. I got like the least exciting offense in the country versus the best and most exciting, the Bills offense. And right now, I could sit here confidently and go like, man, I would much rather watch the Hawkeye offense than the Bills offense. It was crazy because the Bills are scoring a bunch of points. They just beat the Panthers 49 this weekend. And I'm still sitting here going like, I'd probably want to watch the Hawkeyes play. And maybe it's because I'm still like in awe about everything. And I'm like, oh my God, I can't believe I was actually scoring this many points. I need to watch it every single week. But it's just fun. I'm thoroughly enjoying myself. And this game against Oregon, again, we'll talk about more next week. But Oregon's got a bye too, so can't really say anything about what Oregon's going to do. But it's just a fun time. And it's a non-zero chance that Iowa doesn't run the table. I'm not saying it should happen. I'm not saying it will happen. But I think it can happen. That USC game scares me. That Oregon game obviously scares me. But I think Nebraska and Michigan State, I don't want to jinx anything. They lost to Michigan State last year on the road. Shouldn't have done that. Michigan State's bad. They're a bad team. They're just bad. Simple as that. Simple fact. I know they lost to Michigan only by 11 points, which is very damn impressive for them. But, yeah, they're just not very good, are they? They're not. And Nebraska, they came back against Northwestern and got a nice little DPOY / holding call that didn't get called at the end of the game against Northwestern. So that was pretty cool. That was fun. But apart from that, yeah, fun stuff. Fun stuff going around the Big Ten. And yeah, the college football playoff rankings, I think, come out this weekend. Or not this weekend, but next week, if I remember correctly. So I'm very much anxiously anticipating those because I do think Iowa wholeheartedly deserves a spot in the top 25. And you can be a rival fan or whatever. If you're just being unbiased for a second, there's no reason why Iowa should not be in the top 25. And I know this is going to sound crazy. You can't sit there and tell me Texas is better than Iowa right now. You can't. I have a very hard... I know Arch is playing better, and I've liked the improvements that I've seen from Arch, but you can't sit there and tell me that that Texas is currently better than Iowa. You can't, and I'm not allowing it either. I'm just not allowing it. But, yeah, it's just a crazy time. Crazy time in college football. I didn't think that at any point in the season did I ever think that I would be saying that Iowa is better than Texas. But that's the case. That's the case. You look at some Big Ten power rankings as well. Iowa comes in at 6. The only teams above them are top 25 teams. But if you look at the teams above them, it's like Ohio State, Indiana, Oregon, Michigan, USC. I think they're better than Michigan. I mean, USC beat Michigan by double digits, so I don't know how USC is behind Michigan in these rankings. But whatever, if we're just going off top 20, it pretty much just looks like where they're ranking in the top 25 because USC is better than Michigan. We've seen that happen. And I think Iowa's better than Michigan. USC, I don't know, because Jaden Maiava didn't have his greatest game against Notre Dame last week, or 2 weeks ago, sorry. But I think they're better than Michigan. I think they are. And with that, not with Michigan, but with Ohio State, I saw this the other, and I hate how this pops up every single year without fail. It is the most mind-numbingly stupid thing I see on social media every single year. And that is, could Ohio State or could Alabama or could Clemson or LSU beat the worst team in the NFL? No, they could not do that. There is no reality where Ohio State will ever beat an NFL team. Not one. And the simplest way I could, like even the 0-16 Browns, when they went 0-16, the 0-16 Lions from 2008, either of those teams would boat race an NFL team. Or a college football team, sorry. Obviously, they couldn't boat race an NFL team because they went 0-16. But a college football team, they will beat them by crap. They will bend them over and put belt to ass to them numerous times non-freaking stop. And you want to know why? Again, it's the easiest thing I can tell you. Every single person on the Jets right now is in the NFL. Not every single player on Ohio State will play in the NFL. That's just not what's going to happen. Ohio State will not have everybody drafted. Ohio State will not have everybody playing in the NFL. Guess what? Everybody on the Jets plays in the NFL. Everybody on the Jets was once considered one of the best players on their college football team. Ohio State this year, I don't know the exact number of upperclassmen they have or draft eligible players they have, but I would imagine they're going to probably have somewhere around 11 and 12 draft prospects this year. Players drafted. So congratulations. On this team alone, you have, and I know Julian Sain and Jeremiah Smith, they're up there as well. I bet they can't get drafted this year. I know they're going to be talked about as top draft prospects next year, but they can't go out this year. So they're going to be probably, Jeremiah Smith's guaranteed first-round draft pick at this point. Julian Sain, I don't know, because I don't know what next year's draft class is going to look like regardless of quarterback, because we don't know if, Ty Simpson, Fernando Mendoza, Dante Moore, Lenore Sellers, all those guys, they could all come back. So I don't know what next year's class is looking like. And maybe Julian Sain is up and amongst the top guys, because he's one of the Heisman Trophy favorites, right? He's completed damn near 80% of his passes this year. He's playing really well. So they're going to be guys up there as well. But not everybody on that team is going to be in the NFL. Not everybody on that team is going to be a starter. Because guess what? Everybody you're going to play against the Jets is a starter in the NFL. Not everybody that's on the Ohio State Buckeyes right now will start in the NFL ever, let alone be a guaranteed starter in the NFL. But you got Caleb Downs, very, very good player. Caleb Downs is awesome. And you got a lot of other really good players. Carnell Tate is awesome. They're a very, 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 very good football team with a very, very, very good defense and an offense that can beat you on multiple fronts. And I cannot wait for that game against Indiana in the Big Ten Championship game, because that game kind of feels inevitable at this point. And it's going to be freaking awesome when it happens. But that game against the Jets, someone quote tweeted it and said the line is minus 45.5 in favor of the Jets. And that might be being generous to Ohio State. It might be being generous. And again, it's the same thing. The Browns teams, 0-16, 0-16 lines. The funniest one of all of these, and I know it's just to generate attention and get clicks and stuff like that, because you're gonna get people talking. So it's working right now. But my favorite one was when Colorado won those 3 games in a row against, who was it? TCU, Nebraska, and Colorado State a couple years ago. I remember when that was all popping off in Colorado, when Dion was first there and Shador and Travis were all there. They went 3-0. I remember seeing something from FanDuel, which ironically is who tweeted this one out. It was, who would win, the Colorado Buffaloes or the 2019 LSU Tigers? You know, the team that was famously the first number 1 seed to ever win a college football playoff championship, while also having Burrow, Jamar Chase, Justin Jefferson, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, Grant Delpit was on that team. Lloyd Cushenberry was on that team, center. Who else was on that team? Thaddeus Moss was on that team. The wide receiver, number 6, Terrace Marshall, also he was a second-round draft pick. That LSU team, in my life, I know that everybody will talk about the 0-1 Miami team. I understand that. And that 0-1 Miami team had some ridiculous NFL players on it. But that LSU team just did something different. They were so dominant, and they talked shit the entire time. They played so many ranked games that year, and then they beat the crap out of Oklahoma in the semifinal. I was like, this isn't even fair. This is not a college football team. This is an NFL team that dropped down to college. And Joe Burrow won the Heisman Trophy, I believe, by the widest margin of anybody in college football history. I believe. I could be very wrong with that. But that team, against that Colorado team who went 4-8 that year, or 3-9, I can't remember exactly. I think they went. Yeah, they went 4-8 because they beat Arizona State, and Shedeur did the watch thing after their first conference win of the season. Yeah, they went 4-8 that year because Arizona State, they went 3-9 that year. Because obviously Arizona State did what they did last year and all that great stuff. But I love these hypothetical lines are just, they're only there to generate clicks and attention and start a conversation and stuff like that. The conversation doesn't need to be had, but you get paid off of clicks rather than what the actual substance is. That's why rage baiting is so common and a very profitable thing now. That's why you could get paid on Twitter because all you have to do is that. Like, who would win, Ohio State or the Jets? Everybody knows the answer. Like, okay, if we want to make this realistic, I could see a reality where Ohio State beats a UFL team. I could see a reality where that happens. I would say Ohio State probably the favorite in that game. Against a UFL team, NFL, no shot in hell. But UFL, there's some bad players in that UFL. Dominic Daphne, who I do the Believe in Iowa podcast with, he's talked about some of the players that were down in the UFL. He played for either the Memphis Showboats or the Birmingham Stallions. I can't remember which one it was. But yeah, he's talked about some of the players that are down there. And I do think there's a reality where Ohio State could win that game. But against the Jets, no chance in hell. Jets are boat racing them. It's not even close. It's not even a conversation. And it doesn't even matter if Julian's saying it's a realistic shot at winning the Heisman Trophy, because he does. Like, if you look at, I'm going to look at the Heisman Trophy odds. Let's see if I can find it. Let's just look Heisman up on Twitter. Let's just see who pops up for the Heisman stuff. Because everybody's got their rankings. RG3. Okay, we're not going to talk about RG3's Heisman rankings. Okay, here we go. On 3, the Week 10 poll. And someone quote tweeted and said this is the worst Heisman year I can remember in a while. I wouldn't say that. But they're just not as flashy names. But right now, here, their top 10 for the Heisman is Ty Simpson at 1, Fernando Mendoza at 2, Marcel Reed from A&M at 3, Diego Pavia at 4, Julian Sayin 5, Haynes King 6, Trinidad Chambliss at 7, Dante Moore and Brendan Sorsby tied for 8, and Gunnar Stockton coming at number 10. So it's all quarterbacks. All quarterbacks are in this Heisman rankings. And if you look around the state of college football right now, like, look at like guys like Ahmad Hardy, from Missouri. Jeremiah Love could be brought up in that conversation. Like, Ahmad Hardy has 937 yards rushing at this point. I know he's second in the nation rushing behind Cam Cook of Jacksonville State, but we're not going to talk about Cam Cook of Jacksonville State. But guys like Mekhi Lemon could be in this conversation for Heisman Trophy. Like, in regards to, like, if we're talking about non-quarterbacks. David Bailey from Texas Tech. Ruben Bain from Miami. Like, there are guys you could bring up around the Heisman Trophy that are not quarterbacks. But these 10 right here, well, I say it's the most underwhelming Heisman season ever. No, I wouldn't say that. I don't have a year off the top of my head that I can think of. I mean, last year's was kind of underwhelming. I know there was, like, we had Travis Hunter playing both ways, Ashton Genty coming within 100 yards of Barry Sanders' single-season rushing record. I know that was great. But you didn't really quarterbacks that were really in and around the conversation. You need a nice little mixture. Like when Johnny Manziel had the Heisman Trophy, when he won the Heisman, it was Manti Te'o and Colin Klein, whereas the guys he was also with there. Like, that's fun. Manti Te'o, I saw those numbers today. He had I think 11 interceptions as a line. That can't be right. That has to be wrong. Like 7 interceptions as a linebacker, coming at second in the Heisman Trophy. Sorry, I unplugged my mic there. I did not mean to do that. I don't even know if you could tell, but I could tell. So I had to address it before the allegations started coming out. But yeah, like, that's a fun Heisman Trophy year, at least in my mind. Like, that one was fun. Or like when Joe Burrow won the Heisman, that was fun because we all knew he was going to win it. Like, that when you walk in knowing who's going to, like, I would say this is fun because, like, I know I just said that it's fun because you knew who was going to win it, but it is kind of fun not knowing anything, and there's not really that runaway favorite. Maybe that's what they're talking about in regards to why this is so quote-unquote underwhelming, because if you just watch the games, I think, like, Ty Simpson's playing great football. And Mac Jones, when he came fourth in the Heisman, or third in the Heisman Trophy race, he threw for 4,000 yards and had like 45 touchdowns or something like that. I know Mac Jones put up some ridiculous numbers, but Ty Simpson's better and playing better than Mac Jones was, which is crazy to think about because he has 20 passing touchdowns right now. Again, Mac Jones finished with, I think, 45. And there's a chance that Ty Simpson could catch up to him at that point because you've got however many games left, SEC championship game, and however far they go in the playoff. Like, there's a chance he gets there. But right now, you don't really see that. It's just, I don't know. I don't really know what you could really say about this year's Heisman race because I would say Ty Simpson's the favorite. And I don't want to say anybody saying not. Ty Simpson's just trying to be different. But I do think that Simpson right now is playing the best football of anybody in college football. And I think, again, Fernando Mendoza has been playing great all year. But if you look at games where defense got after him a little bit, like against Oregon, like against Iowa, UCLA, not really, but the defensive line broke through and he got batted down at the line of scrimmage and popped up and landed in the arms of the defender. Ty Simpson hasn't had a game like that. You can even point to like the South Carolina game that was this past weekend, where his stats weren't like eye-popping or anything like that. But when they needed him to make a play, he stepped up and made some big plays. Whether it was with his legs or whether it was with his arm, he made some big plays for Alabama throughout the course of the game to get them back, to claw them back, to ultimately win the game. I know he had a fumble in that game, which is not ideal. Probably could have had an interception there as well. But, hey, I wouldn't say that game was any worse than, like, Mendoza looked against Iowa. And I think Mendoza made some great throws against Iowa. And I think Mendoza, from a talent standpoint, in regards to, like, arm talent, I think is the best arm in college football. But I would say Ty Simpson's the best quarterback right now in college football. And obviously that's subject to change. That's a very fluid thing. But right now you'd say Ty Simpson. At least I would say Ty Simpson. There was a point in time you'd say Dante Moore. After the Penn State game, I think everybody and their mom, including myself, said Dante Moore just got one hand on the Heisman Trophy. That's just becoming a curse now. I said that last year with Jalen Milroe after the Georgia game. That couldn't even have been farther from the truth. And Dante Moore, I think, has a chance to win a Big Ten title still. Maybe. I know I said inevitably it's going to be Ohio State and Indiana, unless Indiana and Ohio State just fall off the face of the earth, or Oregon beats Iowa. Or Iowa beats Oregon or something. I don't know. But yeah, I would say those two are the favorite. The one that I get kind of, I don't want to say peeved about, is Pavia. I'm not going to lie. I kind of alluded to this at the beginning of the year. Pavia just kind of, I don't know how really to say this. He annoys me. I think it's the best way I can describe it. Like, you remember when we did our preseason show with Brady and we were talking about, like, Vanderbilt's got national championship aspirations. And they're a very good football team. I mean, they're 7-1 right now. They lost to Alabama earlier in the year. They're 7-1. They're playing really, really well. But Pavia, with all due respect, is nowhere near on the level of a Simpson or a Mendoza. Like Marcel Reed. Marcel Reed is electric as hell. He's just not as in your face about it as Pavia is. But I think Marcel Reed, I know he threw a couple picks against LSU last weekend, but he's electric. Julian Sayin, again, he's completed, like 80% of his passes or something like that, which is a ridiculous number at any point. Haynes King, I like more than Pavia. Trinidad Chambliss, I like more than Pavia. I just don't... I saw I think it was Dan Orlovsky that posted it. It was after the Vanderbilt-Missouri game and said, Pavia just won the Heisman Trophy, or Pavia is the favorite for the Heisman Trophy. His numbers in that game were 10 of 19, 129, which is 52.6% completion percentage, no touchdowns, interception, 20 yards rushing with one rushing touchdown. His worst game of the season statistically, and yet that's the game that puts him on the map in regards to this is the Heisman Trophy. Now, he did that freaking Heisman pose against LSU. He was doing kneel downs before the Alabama game, practicing kneel downs before the Alabama game. He just irks me. I don't really know how else to describe it. He just irks me. Like, I've talked about this before, like, because people are going to talk about him and Baker Mayfield. It's inevitable, because Baker Mayfield talked his talk while he was in Oklahoma. They're not even in the same stratosphere of players. Not even in the same stratosphere. And if you compare numbers, like, if we're just going to be numbers, that's more of what the Heisman Trophy is, rather than who's actually the best player on the field. Like, Ty Simpson and Fernando Mendoza have better numbers than Pavia. If you add Pavia's interceptions to a touchdown, then you have Ty Simpson's passing touchdowns. And I know people are going to say, well, he's a dual threat quarterback. And that's fair, but he's not lighting the world alight as a runner either. I know he leads Vanderbilt in rushing yards. Cool. But no, at this point in time, it's crazy. And there's people like, oh, just look at the early 2000s and stuff. And other Heisman Trophy winners didn't put it. Like, they always point to, I'm completely blanking on his name, Nebraska quarterback. Wow, why am I completely blanking on his name? Number 7, he played safety in the NFL. He was a third-round draft pick, played safety. Why am I blanking on his name? Regardless, okay, no, I have the Heisman Trophy winners already pulled up from earlier. What was his name? It was Eric Crouch. I don't know why I was blanking on Eric Crouch. I've talked about Eric Crouch on the show before. But people talk about, like, look at Eric. I've seen people talk about it. It's not like, oh, people do it, like, in general. I've seen people talk about Eric Crouch's Heisman Trophy season and go like, oh, look at this with Pavia. Look, you can't compare the number. Look at this. Like when Eric Crouch won the Heisman, he won in 2001. He threw for 1,500 yards, had 7 touchdowns, 10 picks, 1,100 yards rushing, 18 touchdowns. So not great statistical value for a quarterback winning the Heisman in today's college football. But guess what? That was 2001. I don't really care what was going on in 2001. This is the year 2025. Eric Crouch with those numbers. I know Nebraska went on to go 11-2 or something like that year. Like, great stuff. Great stuff. And they ran a wing T offense, if that's what you want to call it. They ran a run-first offense. But I don't want to sit here and go, like, compare numbers to something that happened 25 years ago. That's not what the whole point of this is. Why are we comparing numbers to the freaking Eric Crouch from 25 years ago? Like, if you want to do that, let's just go all the way back to freaking Davey O'Brien when he won the Heisman Trophy. Let's look at his numbers when he won a Heisman. His college numbers at TCU when he won the Heisman in what? 1938. He had 1,400 yards and 19 passing touchdowns. Man, you know what? If he can win a Heisman Trophy, then why can't Diego Pavia win a Heisman Trophy? And maybe there's a little bit of me that's still sneering at the fact that it's Vanderbilt, and I just haven't accepted that fact, but I've accepted Indiana. I don't know why, but I think it's like Fernando Mendoza, when I look at him and look at how great he's been doing and helping, like, we're talking about transfer quarterbacks, because I saw people talking about, like, Pavia transforming Vanderbilt to what they are. And I saw someone saying that Fernando Mendoza is doing that at Indiana as well. And they're like, well, why didn't he do it at Cal? Well, then why didn't Pavia do it at New Mexico? Why was he not a Heisman Trophy favorite at New Mexico State? Like, why was that not a thing? Well, I don't know. Just given what I've watched from Simpson and Mendoza, I think they're on completely different planets comparatively to Pavia in regards to a Heisman Trophy candidate. And I respect the fact that Vanderbilt is 7-1. I do respect that. And I think it's a very cool achievement. But just because a team that's good, that's not normally good, is now good, doesn't mean their quarterback has to be a Heisman Trophy candidate. And you could go, well, Logan, Indiana's not normally good. Yeah, but Fernando Mendoza is a lot better than Pavia, in my opinion. So that's where it's different. It's not just that, Indiana hasn't been good forever. Now they're good. It's all that stuff. No. Mendoza, I just think, is naturally better than Pavia. He's got a better arm. He's not as mobile, but he doesn't need to run as much. And Fernando Mendoza is a good athlete. We saw it this past weekend when he did against UCLA. He had almost 50 yards rushing in that game. Like, I don't really care. And I do think that you need to look at like Jeremiah Love in that conversation in regards to that, because it's just not this one is kind of fun. Manziel, Mariota, Jameis Winston, Bryce Petty. That one's winner. But Haynes King, I really like Haynes King. Julian Sand, I would put up there as well. So I'd put King above him, above Pavia. And I would put Sand above him. And then after that, once you get past like 5, I'm not really including anybody else in that conversation. I mean, Bear Bachmeier, I am kind of surprised he's not on this in this list, given how good BYU has been this year. We're number 47, no less. Like, they're still undefeated. I didn't think they'd be undefeated at this point. I don't think anybody did. Especially given the fact they had that whole controversy with Retzlaff before the season started. Like, no one had any idea of how good a team BYU would be with that quarterback situation. With him not ever playing before and transferring from Stanford right before the season started. Not much was expected from him. And yet, guess what? They're undefeated. So I think he deserves a mention in there. But Chambliss is a baller. I really like Trinidad Chambliss. I like Trinidad Chambliss more than I like Pavia, if I'm being completely honest. But, yeah, I think right now it's Simpson and Mendoza. It's one of theirs to lose at this point. And I do think that, like, Haynes King, I just slow down here. Okay, let's take a breath. I'm not saying that Pavia does not need to belong in these conversations. I just want to clarify that. I'm not saying that him being in this list is asinine or anything like that, because it's not. But to sit here and say that he should be the favorite or be the winner of the Heisman, that's where we could kind of cross the line a little bit. Him being in the top 10, fine. Because Brennan Sorsby is in the top 10. And I really like Brennan Sorsby. But for a Heisman Trophy, no, not Brennan Sorsby. Not the biggest fan of Brennan Sorsby when it comes to the Heisman Trophy. I like him as a prospect. Not for the Heisman Trophy. Gunnar Stockton, what the hell is he doing in here? I know George has been playing good, but still, I'm not. No, Gunnar Stockton. Bear Bachmeier should be in well above Gunnar Stockton and Brennan Sorsby for the Heisman Trophy. For strictly the Heisman Trophy. So I'm not sitting here going like, oh, you can't bring him up ever. But to say he's the favorite, that's where it draws the line. Again, I think it's Simpson and Mendoza's to lose at this point, and then you could go any other directions, I guess, if you really want to, for the rest of the top 10. So you guess what? I take back what I said earlier. Yeah, it is pretty disappointing. It is a pretty disappointing this. It is. Now that when I kept talking about it, the more and more I kept talking about it, I'm like, you know what? This year kind of does stink for the Heisman Trophy. It does kind of stink. But I do think Mendoza or Simpson are very worthy candidates for it. Come on. Did he score? I'm watching the Ravens-Dolphins game. I got Derek. He got stuffed at the 1 yard line. Of course he did. Of course he freaking did. But, yeah. Now, real quick, I'm not going to go over the top 10 rankings right now, but I do want to at least mention them because he got stuffed again. Whatever. What was I saying? The top 10 rankings. It's interesting because the top 5 to 6 in my mind is kind of just, it's staying where it needs to stay. Like, it's not really, it doesn't look like it's fluctuating anytime soon, but I think the top 6, I think, are there to stay for a while, unless someone really kicks on or someone falls off. But right now, I still have Simpson 1. I still have Fernando Mendoza 2. I still have Dante Moore 3, even though he barely played against Wisconsin. I have Lenore Sellers at 4. But then I had John Mateer at 5 because I thought he played better than Nussmeier this past weekend. Because Nussmeier, they played, who did they play? Why am I blanking? Texas A&M. I did that earlier. And it wasn't the same game as it was last year, per se, in regards to him throwing 3 interceptions in the second half. But it was the same in regards to, like, if you look at how they were leading at halftime, and then you got, you got blown out in the second half. Like, they were up. I got to find the exact number here. But they were up at halftime 18-14. In the blink of an eye, it was 42-18, Texas A&M. And Texas A&M ended up winning the game 49-25. In Nussmeier, I thought made some decent throws. He had a very good deep ball to Brown in the second half. It was first half, very, very good throw. Led him perfectly. Defender couldn't do anything. You couldn't even see Brown make the catch. It was just that inch perfect of a throw. And he had a nice little jump ball throw to Trades Green in the first half as well for their first touchdown of the game. Who Trades Green, you can just throw it in his area code, he'll probably catch it. But overall, I thought Mateer, who even though they lost as well, because Oklahoma lost to Ole Miss this past weekend, John Mateer made a lot of really big plays for Oklahoma. And I'm not saying you're going he was perfect. He wasn't. There were some throws he missed in this game. But you look at his deep throw to Sentenga in the first half. 41-yard bomb, or 39-yard bomb, down the near sideline. Then you look at his touchdown pass to Sentenga again, where he's directing traffic. Sentenga's route stops in the middle of the field, and he says, hey, keep going. And he steps up, throws it to him. Sentenga gets a 72-yard touchdown, or 76-yard touchdown. He has a nice little 15-yard pass to Burks in the second half. You look at his run play that he had, wrong read, but because he was reading the linebacker when he should be reading the safety. Safety didn't move an inch, and he was waiting for the receiver to open up, but the safety being there kind of halted his throw there, so he ended up picking up 16 yards on the ground. Because if a play breaks down or you make a wrong read, because every quarterback's going to do that every once in a while, make a wrong read or something, it's going to happen. How do you adjust to it? How do you move on the fly with that? And he's able to do that. 16-yard carry on the ground. And you look at his throw, it's 21-yard pass to Robinson. Rolls out to right, gets the ball out right before the defender can get him. And the defender falling over in the secondary definitely helped. But it was still a nice play from John Mateer to pick up a 21-yard gain for the Sooners. I thought, again, he wasn't perfect in this game, but I do think his playmaking ability really flashed in this game. This is the closest we've seen John Mateer being John Mateer post-Auburn game. Like, he was making big throws down the field. He's being smarter with the football, and I'm sure that's getting drilled into him. With Brent Venables being his head coach, being a defensive-minded head coach, I'm sure that's driving him crazy how reckless Mateer can be. But, 17-31, 223, one touchdown, no picks. Like, I like it. He had 17 yards rushing on the ground as well, but they include sacks from college, which I think is stupid, but whatever. But yeah, that's the only real change out of there. And I do have some new faces in the top 10 at the bottom half of the list, but I'm not going to tell you who they are because I want you to go check it out yourself. I want you to go to LoganBlackmanShow.com and check out who's coming in at number 9 and 10 in this week's rankings because it's not the same two people that were sitting there last week. I can tell you that. So make sure you go to the website and check that out. You can also check out the YouTube channel and check out the video there as well, and you'll find out an answer there. And you don't even need to stick around that long for the YouTube video because it'll be the first one that I say like that. I'll mention the honorable mention section. But, yeah, it changed around. You know what? I'll do this, though. I will do this. It is one of Carson Beck, Josh Hoover, Sam Levitt, Cole Payton from North Dakota State, Sawyer Robertson from Baylor, Haynes King, Brennan Sorsby, or Trinidad Chambliss. You can bet on who you think the final two are on this list, but those are the guys, those are the names I will tell you. But I want to wrap this up here, but I do want to talk about the Bills and Chiefs game. I have to talk about the Bills-Chiefs game, so that's this weekend. And it's funny, so my sister's getting married on Saturday, which congratulations to them. It's an awesome time. Very, 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 very happy for them. And the only downside of it is that the Bills-Chiefs game's this weekend. And before the season started, my dad, sister, and I were sitting around going like, oh, we need to talk about Bills-Chiefs game. And of course, schedule comes out. Game is on November 2nd. Of course it happened like that. Of course it happens like that. But it's fine. It's fine because this year, if you look at the Bills and Chiefs right now, so the Bills are 5-2. They're coming off a big, big win against Carolina Panthers, which was expected. And the Chiefs right now are 5-3. They've rattled off 3 straight wins against the Lions, Raiders, Commanders, all by double digits. Actually, all the Chiefs wins so far this year have been by double digits. The Lions and Ravens are also in there as well. They lost to the Chargers, Eagles, and Jaguars. The Jaguars game still weirds me out. I don't understand how that one happened. But you look at this game going in, and I was talking to my neighbors. They came over to trick or treat, so we were giving them candy, and they're Chiefs fans. So we were kind of talking about it a little bit, and I, not going to lie, there was part of me that kind of forgot at that moment in time the Bills and Chiefs played on Saturday or on Sunday because my mind was so focused on the wedding. But they were sitting there talking about they were like, the Bills are going to beat the crap out of the Chiefs. Is there a chance that happens? I mean, in recent memory, the Bills and Chiefs, they have very much split the regular season and postseason. It's the Bills win all the time in the regular season, the Chiefs win all the time in the postseason. That's just what happens. And it's annoying that happens. So there's a little bit of like weirdness in my brain that's going like, oh, maybe the Chiefs should win because that could get the Bills to win the postseason. I know that's not how that works, but my brain's trying to convince me of that's how it works. And you look at how these two teams are playing right now. The Chiefs prior to the season, like going into the season, when they lost those 2 straight games, like, oh, it's curtains. Oh, this team's done. We said time and time again, it's still the Kansas City Chiefs, still the Chiefs. Until they're dead, I'm never going to count them out. And the Bills, they lost back-to-back games to the Patriots and Falcons. So world was ending, yada, yada, yada. The offense wasn't playing very good. Offense wasn't playing good at all. And you got the Panthers game, James Cook runs for over 200 yards. It was awesome. Great game. But if you look at some of the I don't know what you want to call them, the trackers, I guess you could say, where it's just the polka dots on the screen and they track where the players are. There was one play Josh Allen had in the first half where he rolled out to his left trying to buy time, and not a single receiver in 10 seconds of rolling off. It took 10 point however many seconds for the defender to chase him down. 10 seconds, and nobody could get open. Not one person could get open in 10 seconds. Like, I'm not going to sit here and tell you Josh Allen's been perfect. He's been far from perfect. And I do think it's kind of funny looking at him in some of these MVP conversations right now, because I saw the NFL Network post today. They had 4 people in this picture. It was Josh Allen, Mahomes, and then Drake May, and it was either Jonathan Taylor or Daniel Jones. I can't remember which one it was in there. But those were the 4 in there. And I can't lie to you. Right now, Josh Allen's not playing like a guy who's going to win MVP. Right now, he's not. He's obviously got it in him. Josh Allen, talent-wise, is the best quarterback in the NFL. Like, that's been proven. In regards to natural talent, like I saw a conversation about the most talented quarterback in NFL history, I think it's undoubtedly Josh Allen. Most talented? I'm not saying you're telling you he's the greatest quarterback of all time, but he's undoubtedly the most talented. He's 6'5", 240 pounds, can hurdle a defender, also throw the ball 100 freaking miles an hour, and throw it 100 yards. There's no other quarterback in NFL history that's ever done that. He just passed Cam Newton for most games with a passing and rushing touchdown in NFL history. He just passed him in that. 46 games with that. It only took him 117 games. You look at the other people in the top 4, Cam Newton, Aaron Rodgers, Steve Young. Aaron Rodgers, Steve Young played over 200 games, 240 games to be exact. Cam Newton played 144. Josh Allen played 117, got 46. Rushing touchdown-wise, Josh Allen is 5 touchdowns away from passing Cam Newton. 5 away from passing him, all time. And that's also with him being a 4,000-yard passer. That's also with him having 5 consecutive 40-plus touchdown seasons, with an MVP in there as well. Talent-wise, it's not close to who's the most talented quarterback of all time. But that's different than being the best quarterback of all time, because that has to come with accolades as well. I know he has got an MVP and all that stuff, which is great, but we need to see something from the Bills in the playoffs. It's not even from him. Josh Allen's done his part in the Bills' playoff success. The defense has not. And I saw a stat the other day, and I've always talked about how bad the defense is for the Bills in regards to the playoffs, and look at some of the losses they've had, and it's all been on the defense. Josh Allen versus the Chiefs. He's 4-1 in the regular season. 296 yards a game, 25.8 points per game. Postseason, he's 0-4 against the Chiefs. 327 total yards per game, 28.3 points per game. So he averages more yards per game in the playoffs than he does the regular season, 3 points more. Bills defense in the regular season against the Chiefs, 20.8. That's the amount of points they give up in the regular season, is 20.8. The Bills defense against the Chiefs in the playoff give up 34.8 points per game. So if we're talking about what the problem is and why the Bills haven't, quote-unquote, made it over the hump, it's because of the defense. And the problem that I'm having right now, because I look at the grand scheme of things, look at like the coaching levels in the NFL, look at who the Bills could possibly get. Because there is part of me that goes, the Bills have changed defensive coordinators. The Bills have changed offensive coordinators. Yeah, the offense is still the same offense. But the defense, and when the crunching times, time and time again, fail. And the only constant there has been Sean McDermott. I love and appreciate Sean McDermott for what he's done in his time in Buffalo, but these postseasons, if they have another problem in the postseason like they have in recent years, then I wouldn't be upset with him going. Again, I love Sean McDermott. I think he's done a great job in building a culture and building this team back up from the scratch. I mean, he broke the playoff curse. Like, I love him for that. But sometimes you go as far as you can, and then you just need to get someone else to get you over the top. And I think that, the Bills' defense in the regular season gives up 14 less points on average than they do in the playoffs, against the Chiefs anyways. That is massive. A 2-touchdown difference? That is crazy. And again, the only constant from that point to now is Sean McDermott is still there. And I think this defense right now, they're injured to hell and back. Ed Oliver's just out for the season, tore his biceps. So that's awesome. They're getting Maxwell Hairston back, which is awesome. I thought he played great in his little cameo appearance that he had against the Panthers. Safeties, Taylor Rapp's on IR, so that's awesome. Not that he's that great, but the backups to the safety position right now are not ideal either. So the Bills' defense is not the healthiest and playing the greatest right now. And the offense isn't playing that great, but James Cook is playing fantastic right now. The Bills desperately need, right now, a separator on offense. Rashid Shaheed from the Saints would be the guy that I think a lot of people can point to, and they wouldn't get like they wouldn't need to give up a massive amount to get him. But if they can get Brian Thomas, because I saw he was available for some reason. Chris Olave's also been mentioned in there. There's been talks of there's other people that have been brought up. Juwan Jennings from the 49ers, I've seen him getting brought up recently. Jalen Waddle from the Dolphins has been brought up. But if they could get at least Shaheed, just to get someone to separate. Someone. Because Keon Coleman's not it. I love Khalil Shakir, but most of Khalil Shakir's numbers come after the catch. Khalil Shakir will catch a ball out of the backfield and then pick up 15 yards just on pure willpower. I don't understand how it happens, but he does it every single time. I don't know if the number still stands, but he was once upon a time the NFL leader in yards after catch. I don't know if he still leads that number, but he's the dude. I love him, but I don't want him to be the Bills' number one option. Keon Coleman's just not it. They drafted him in the second round. He's not it. Whether it's the coaching staff, whether it's him as a person, he got suspended for a couple games in the first half of games, and the only time they do anything with him is when they run fade balls and have him go back and get it. They try to run back shoulders and just use his size against the defender, but 50% of the time he won't come down with it, despite him being the biggest receiver the Bills have against the team's smaller corner. There's not a guarantee. He had a great game against the Ravens, and we're like, oh, that's a big coming out party for him, and it's just never been anything close to that since then. So they need somebody. I don't care if it's Shaheed or if it's Jalen Waddle or Brian Thomas. They just need somebody there. My dream scenario in the draft when they drafted Keon Coleman was Brian Thomas. So I would love to see him in Buffalo, but I don't know how realistic that is. But if you look at Josh Allen and Patrick Mahomes at this point, their head-to-head matchups, including playoffs, they played 9 times. Mahomes has 5 when Josh has 4. Again, all 4 of Josh are in the regular season, 4 of those 5 from Mahomes are in the postseason. Total yards per game, Mahomes averages 303 yards a game. Josh Allen, total yards per game, 309.7. Total touchdowns, Mahomes has 22, Josh Allen has 24. Giveaways, Patrick Mahomes has 9, Josh Allen has 5. So Josh Allen statistically is better than Mahomes in these head-to-head matchups, and yet has a losing record in this game. So this is where I talk about like wins and losses or quarterback stat. This is where they lose all validity, I guess you could say. Josh Allen's played better on average against the Chiefs than Mahomes has against the Bills, and yet the Chiefs are the team that wins. Mahomes has 4 more giveaways, 2 less touchdowns, averages 6 less yards, and yet has 1 more win. Everything's less, except for the giveaways, which that's more, and he has more wins. Head-to-head points scored in these games. Chiefs, 243, Bills, 242. Do I think either one of these teams are playing their best football? No, not by a long shot. But when they do, whenever that happens, because it's inevitable that it happens, they're going to be the 2 teams meet in the AFC Championship game yet again, because that's just what happens. Because do I trust the Colts? Not really. I think Daniel Jones is playing great. Jonathan Taylor is, top 3 MVP guy right now. Drake May's in that conversation. Like, the MVP race is not really involved. I know people throw Mahomes back into there, but he threw a couple bad interceptions against the Commanders that I think have just been wiped off the face of the earth. So I would put Jonathan Taylor and Drake May, unless I'm forgetting somebody up there as well, as the top 2 guys. And I think it's hilarious that Daniel Jones is up there, but Jonathan Taylor's the main cog in this offense. He's going to put up historical numbers this year. And the Colts right now, they lead the league in point differential by an extremely wide margin. 116. The next closest is the Chiefs with 83. 116, 83, that's the gap. But these 2 teams, they'll figure it out. They're not going to be playing the most consistent or pretty football at this point in time, but we've seen this story before. We know the talent that these 2 teams have at quarterback. They're going to figure it out. It's probably going to be a barn burner, because guess what? I don't think the Chiefs' defense has been playing that great this year. The Chiefs' offensive line is still not that great. They have no running game. Isaiah Pacheco, I think, has been ruled out for this game. Their receivers scare me. Yeah. Like Rashee Rice, Xavier Worthy, Hollywood Brown. Kelsey is still a threat against the Bills. He kills the Bills every single time he plays. Like, the receivers scare me. And that's why I'm kind of fearful of the defense. But with Max Hairston being back, they needed to get him some reps against the Panthers, because you were not going to throw him straight into the Chiefs game without any game reps at all. You need to throw him in at least a little bit in this game, or in the game against the Panthers, and they did. So I'm more mentally prepared to see him in that game than I would have been earlier. But can the Chiefs stop the Bills' rush attack? That's the interesting part as well. The Chiefs, it's just going to be an interesting game. I'm not going to sit here and go like, oh, the Bills will win. I'm not going to sit here and tell you like, oh, I really want the Chiefs to actually win because of that. Like, that's a stupid thing for me to say in regards to like, oh, the Chiefs should actually win, because I know it has no bearings on anything. But I can tell you this, wouldn't be crying if the Bills actually lost the Chiefs this year in the regular season. And they always talk about, like, oh, this is the Bills Super Bowl and all stuff like that. It ain't the Bills Super Bowl anymore. It ain't. Playoffs? Yeah. Because I want to go to the Super Bowl. I want to see my team play in the Super Bowl. That's what I want. So I guess the best point to that is that they're playing the Chiefs in the playoffs and going to lose them here. And there's like that little bit of you that's like, I don't want to. I'd rather just have someone else beat the Chiefs. But no, I want to be the team that beats the Chiefs. Because if the Bills beat whoever beat the Chiefs, let's say hypothetically the Colts beat the Chiefs in the playoffs, and the Bills don't have to play them, then everybody's just gonna go like, oh, you only beat the Colts. Like, wait, you beat the Chiefs. Like, you only won, like, some of the two Rockets championships they won in between the Bulls dynasties. There's some people out there that go, you only won because Jordan didn't play. Like, that's it. He sat out for 2 years, you won 2 championships. Congratulations. No one from the West was doing anything at that point in time. I mean, either side of those Rockets championships is 2 3-peats. No one from the West was doing that. Yeah, the only reason you won a championship because he didn't play. It's like the Dolphins when they won the division back in 2007. Or 2008-9, sorry. Only reason you guys won the division because Brady got hurt. Brady comes back, never lose the division again. Only reason you guys won it because of that. So I don't want to hear the little asterisk in there. I don't need the asterisk. I want earned. I want it earned. That's all I want. I want it earned. And I think that's really all I've got for you. There's part of me that wants to like delve into the Bears controversy with Caleb Williams and stuff like that, because I know there's a lot of talking points around Caleb Williams at this point in time, but I'm kind of crunched for time at this point in time, so we're not going to delve in completely into that, but that'll be a different story because I'm sure there's going to be a lot of conversations after this game against the Bengals, because the Bengals defense, historically, not great, so you would kind of expect Caleb Williams to play well there, but that's a different time. You can kind of just talk about the NFC North in general, because the Vikings situation, Carson Wentz is on IR, unsurprisingly, given if you've watched the Vikings play with Carson Wentz as a starter, it's pretty unsurprising that he wound up on IR at some point. But you can really just talk about like the Packers right now. Jordan Love playing as good as he is. The Lions are still good despite Ben Johnson leaving. Like, you could talk a lot about the NFC North. A lot about them. But we're not going to do that today. That's a different conversation for another time. Sunday Night Football, Seahawks Commanders. Good Lord, that's disgusting. Tyler Shuck is starting. There's a little thing there for you. And I'm intrigued to see what the Saints do in the draft. I know we've got some time before the draft, but there's part of me that thinks the Saints might just draft someone like Reuben Bain. I mean, they haven't drafted a quarterback in the first round since Arch Manning. They haven't drafted a quarterback in the first round since Archie Manning in 71. That's the last time they did that. They haven't done it since. And they've been linked to quarterbacks in the first round. They haven't done it. There are people that are talking about them drafting Jackson Dart in this year's draft at number 9. There are people talking about them drafting Lamar Jackson when they drafted Marcus Davenport, when they traded out to draft him. There are people talking about them drafting Jordan Love when he got drafted by the Packers. Like, there's been times people have talked about the Saints drafting quarterback, and they just don't do it. So this year, like, Spencer Rattler's far from the biggest issue with the New Orleans Saints right now. Far from the biggest issue. You know, Mickey Loomis, he wants to address the trenches early in the draft. Drafted Kelvin Banks the first round this year. They've drafted a lot of offensive linemen in the first round of the draft. They drafted a lot of defensive linemen in the first round. They don't draft a lot of skill positions apart from Chris Olave, but even that year they drafted Trevor Penning in the first round. So they still drafted an offensive lineman in the first round. So it's just it's an interesting thought piece. And I guess real quick, Caleb Williams thing is a whole different discussion. That's going to take a while to go through. We'll probably just start a show with that next time. But if you look at around the NFL, who could draft a quarterback? Like, the Dolphins are an interesting one because they're on TV right now. They're not very good. Mike McDaniel's going to get fired at some point. But they are tied to Tua $55 million a year. So that's going to be interesting to see what they do with their quarterback situation. But you look at a team like the Titans who are 1-7. They're not drafting a quarterback. They just drafted Cam Ward. Best case scenario, probably just trade back, get as many pieces as you can, and then build around Cam Ward. Or draft Reuben Bain. Or draft Jordan Tyson. Like, you could get him a wide receiver as well. Do that. Then you look at a team like... Who else could be in this conversation that could draft a quarterback realistically? You've got the Steelers. They'll probably draft one. I don't know about the first round. I mean, you got 41-year-old Aaron Rodgers. Unless you think that Will Howard is the answer long-term. Maybe you do. I don't know. But, yeah, you got a 41-year-old quarterback. Probably got to think about it. The Raiders got to think about that as well. The Saints are going to think about it. I don't know if they will. Like, the only teams I'm confident will draft a quarterback are the Jets and the Browns. Jets and Browns. Because Dylan Gabriel ain't it. And I want to see Shedeur play. I don't know when that will come, but they're going to draft a quarterback. I don't know which one it is. I think in a perfect world, I would like to see Simpson with the Jets. Like to see, because I hate the Jets. I don't want to see them draft anybody good. But Simpson with the Jets and Mendoza with the Browns, I think those would be very good fits there. Obviously, Mendoza with the Dolphins would be the most perfect one, but they're not going to keep Mike McDaniel, so there's really no point of me talking about them drafting him if they're not going to keep their guy. I mean, and another fun one would be kind of interesting is Lenore Sellers to the Saints, given that Kellen Moore had Jalen Hurts in Philadelphia. Maybe that'd be kind of fun. And he had Dak Prescott in Dallas. Because remember when Dak Prescott got drafted by Mississippi State, he was a very good runner. And now he's another MVP guy that I didn't talk about before. He's another MVP guy. But he had them. I know he had Phil with the Chargers for that hot second. But the past two stops that he's had have been mobile or quarter. No, because he was Cowboys, then Chargers, then Eagles, I believe. I think that's how it was. Yeah. Because he was Cowboys post-retirement. Because he got retired because of Dak Prescott, because he got hurt in the preseason. But Dak Prescott was a runner first in college. He wasn't this great passer that we're seeing. Like, this version of Dak Prescott's not the Dak Prescott we saw at Mississippi State. Illinois is a lot more athletic than Dak Prescott. They're not even close to similar styles of quarterback. And even Jalen Hurts. I've seen people compare him to Jalen Hurts. He's not Jalen Hurts either. I would say kind of controversial. I think Lenore Sellers has a stronger arm than both of them. That's not saying that he's better than them, but he has a stronger arm than both of them. So just interesting conversations, but I think I'll leave it there. I'll just leave it there for today. And if you enjoyed the show, awesome. If you didn't, I sincerely apologize. Try to be better next time. Obviously, again, make sure to check out all the different links to the social media accounts that we mentioned before. Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, and of course, Apple Podcasts, Spotify. Make sure to check out the Draft Expert blog post, Week 9 quarterback prospect rankings on LoganBlackmanShow.com. Make sure to check out the Believe in Iowa podcast as well. And also make sure to check out the YouTube video. That'll be out around like 2 o'clock or something like that today for you, so make sure you stay tuned for that. And with that, I've been Logan Blackman, and I will see you guys later. Peace.